Hi everyone, I'm Will from Searchability. I've been at Searchability for 3.5 years now. I started in October 2017 on the contracts team and now have the pleasure of heading up the national security and defence team for the whole of the UK. So when I started recruiting for contract professionals in the Southwest, I realised just how big the defence and national security industry was in that area. We had a few small projects with a couple of small consultancies, and we somehow ended up placing people into the Queen Elizabeth carrier, which was a multi-billion-pound project, and it just blew my mind. I was just hugely interested and naturally gravitated towards it. And I would say there's the big three challenges. The first challenge is the whole of the IT world has got a huge skill shortage. The second particular challenge in this world is the clearance shortage as well. If you think there's a huge clearance shortage and a huge technical shortage, it kind of equals a huge shortage upon a shortage. And I think to add some gas to the fire, there's a lot of mystery and secrecy around the security cleared world. So not a lot of people know that the work is one out there and two how to get it. I would say it definitely has. Not all for the worse. What we quickly realised is when you go through security clearance, the process is anywhere between 6 weeks to 9 months. The vetting bodies were running at a much smaller capacity and ran up a bit of a backlog. So it took quite a while to figure out how we were going to get people through the clearance to get started. I think, like most industries, the government had a bit of a backlog of laptop orders as well. So quite often it was taking 1 to 2 months to get laptops delivered. And I think the third thing is, typically speaking, security cleared work always had the stigma of having to be done on site. And the good news that came out of it now is a lot of government agencies have managed to reduce the security clearance classification. So what was previously DV cleared is now mostly SC cleared work being done from home, which is kind of bought the industry 3, 4, 5 years into the future and allowing working home for the first time. I would say it is the most secure job for life, essentially. So as I mentioned, there's a huge skill shortage and a huge clearance shortage. Once you get into that community, companies will invest absolutely everything in you to get you to stay. As I mentioned, there's a £16 billion additional investment over the next 5 years. So getting in now means there's a huge amount of growth opportunities available. There's a few that definitely spring to mind. I had the absolute pleasure of working on a mainframe architect for the Home Office a couple of years ago. It was a language called PL1, which was originally written in 1950, 1960, and everyone I found that had ever used it had retired. So we had a really good run and we placed 2 in the end, but that certainly caused a particular challenge. I would say recruitment sweet spot would be a contract Java developer. At any time, we normally recruit over 50 Java developers on a permanent basis. I think at the moment we've got over 70 live Java requirements with 10 different companies. So as you can imagine, we've got a huge database of Java candidates. Our particular sweet spot, which we're always having an active foothold in the market, would definitely be DV cleared Java. I would say 2 things. I'd say number 1, go for it. The industry is absolutely flying at the moment. There's always been a huge demand and it's a particular emphasis at the moment. I think about 2 months ago there was announced the government will put an extra £16 billion into the defence spend for the next 6 years. And I think my second piece of advice is don't be put off by the word defence. We recruit quite heavily for security cleared candidates across national security, government and defence. And most of the work is actually taking hundreds of thousands of pounds worth of drugs, guns and knives off the street. So normally when people think of defence, they think of missile systems, and that is not really what we recruit for at all. We're actually doing some really good work for the good. I would say have a long-term strategy in mind. So we get a lot of clients which are looking for 12 to 20 cleared software developers at a time. I think the key thing is, yes, try and recruit a portion of those already cleared. And then number 2, it's quite often easier to find 5 experienced professionals who aren't cleared and get them through security clearance, and that's quite often as quick as finding 5 people who are already cleared. And I suppose third of all, use a reputable recruitment company who understands what we're talking about. The SC and DV cleared community is quite mysterious and holds a lot of secrets, and I think working with a recruitment company that understands it can add real value. Yes, yeah, there's a few we are legally not allowed to say, but the ones we can. We work really closely with Lockheed Martin. I work really closely with Northrop Grumman and Roebuck Manor. We place direct into a lot of government bodies such as Ministry of Defence, Home Office, Ministry of Justice, just to name a few. The Digital Outcomes Specialist 5 is a particularly good opportunity for us. What that means is we can supply contracted professionals directly into end government bodies. So we can supply into the Ministry of Defence, Ministry of Justice, Home Office, Department for Education, as a few examples, direct. This delivers really good value both for the contractor, the end client, and I suppose the taxman at the same time as well. Last year there was £1.1 billion flowed through the framework, so I imagine it means we'll be really busy, and we're looking forward to expanding into new areas of the UK market. I think proudest achievement would be looking back and seeing how far we came. I think when you looked at 3.5 years ago, we didn't really have a reputation or a footprint within the SC or DV cleared world. We're now number one suppliers to a whole handful of multinational companies that we couldn't have dreamed of 3 years ago. I think the distance we came in the last 3 years and the team we've built is probably what stands out for me. I would say the most embarrassing moment, I probably had quite a few I can't think of, but as you can tell, I'm originally from the North East and the accent hasn't really left me, so I've had a whole reel of embarrassing mispronunciations over the years. One of my first projects was working on a big new programme in a place I thought was called Berkshire. I spoke to over 80 people and it was only number 82 or 83 that let me know it was actually pronounced Berkshire. I've introduced a candidate called what I thought was Penelope, it turns out she's actually called Penelope. And I once sent someone to a job interview in somewhere I thought was Thames, only to be told afterwards it was the Thames. In terms of billings and placements, it's something we sacrifice as recruiters quite a lot of late nights and weekends for. At the moment, I'm actually saving quite heavily to finally move away from renting a property to buying a property. So I've had the luxury of saving quite a lot of money over the last 12 months. In terms of I suppose the things I have trekked myself on, it's mostly been holidays. Some of those I've managed to go on, quite a lot of those COVID has cancelled, so very much looking forward to finally getting to Thailand in 2021. I think on a weekend or after a late night, you'd most often find me out in the countryside on a long walk or getting up and down a mountain. So I had the joy of snapping my ACL late last year, and yeah, I'm still stubborn enough to try and drag myself up and down mountains, and I've got some plans to try and do the 3 peaks this summer if COVID allows. So yeah, you'll probably find me continuously working and then getting away for the weekend somewhere in the middle of nowhere. The first thing I'm looking forward to doing is travelling 180 miles back to the North East and seeing the family. Due to COVID, I haven't seen him for 10 months. I've got a 3-year-old nephew who runs rings around me, and I've got a 13-year-old niece who's probably the height of me. So number 1, probably getting a haircut. Number 2, going to see the family.